I'm David Hunt and welcome to The Art Hunter. My guest today, festival director, creative producer, and like so many arts organisations look at him and think, wow, he's such a leader in the arts. He has chaired Theatre Network Australia, headed programming at Wheeler Centre. Ooh, that's impressive. An executive producer and CEO on Polyglot Theatre. Now, in his 9th year as creative director and CEO, Melbourne Fringe, Simon Abrahams. Hello.
Hello, David. How are you?
I'm well. Congratulations on your brilliant career already.
Thank you so much.
And like 9 years now at Fringe.
That's it. I've, going to gear up for the decade next year. Let's go. Let's do it.
So let's go back, before we speak about Fringe Festival, because it's such an important festival and one coming up as we speak. Where did the interest come from in the arts for you?
Look, I just always knew, I'm one of those people, I always knew what I was going to do with my life. So, right from when I was a tiny little child, I was just drawn to the stage, I think.
Yeah.
And
did you ever act?
I performed, at uni and school, and I've performed, I've done a comedy festival show, and I've performed more as a kind of cabaret performer
Can you
than
sing?
a kind of actor. Oh, maybe a note or two. But
do you ever do it anymore? No?
Not really, no. I guess I don't feel like I'm a frustrated performer stuck, behind a desk.
Yeah.
But, every now and again I enjoy sort of doing something. I performed, probably the last thing I did was a gig with the Fringe, actually, which was about 8 or 9 years ago, one of my first years. And Bron Batten, who's an amazing artist, she did a show which was professional performers and their amateur dads performing together. Yeah. So my dad and I, and he's terrible, sorry, Dad. We performed together. So I did that. I may have maybe doing a little song, a little spot at the in a Fringe show this year.
Brilliant.
Can't say too much.
Can't say anything right now.
Just
so
fun.
Why did you navigate yourself into this position where you are now? Wheeler Centre alone, very impressive on that front.
Yeah, I guess for me, I'm always interested in gigs that are big, that are interested in kind of thinking outside the square. And the thing about the Melbourne Fringe gig is that the city is the canvas.
Yep.
And that's what's interesting to me. It's not stuck in any one building or any one art form. The only rule at Melbourne Fringe is it has to be big, it has to be bold, and it has to kind of be a bit left of centre. You can't do anything too conservative.
Yeah.
Well, pretty much every one of my colleagues in other festivals or venues or organisations talk about conservative audiences and, they're not allowed to kind of do the bold programming they want to do. Melbourne Fringe, anything goes. So that's why it really appealed to me.
And the wonderful thing is that you do program a few, but mostly it's people putting their hand up, performers putting their hand up saying, I want to give it a go.
That's right. Yeah, it's the mix of those things that interests me. So we've got what we call our signature events. It's a chance for me and the team to be able to curate and commission works that kind of have an impact on the city or on an art form or on a kind of demographic.
What's this swing that's going to be happening?
Exactly. Like a giant, we're doing a giant 8-metre tall swing. Great example. I was talking to Ian Pidd, who's an incredible artist, Melbourne Fringe living legend. And he had this incredible idea for an 8-metre tall, shiny golden swing. And I was just like, that is genius.
Where is it?
So we're going to put it on the forecourt of the State Library.
Whoa.
And there'll be a choir that sings to you while you swing.
Wow.
And the whole experience is facilitated by kids. And so we wanted to kind of reverse that power structure. So as a punter, you arrive, a child straps you into this chair, into this swing, pulls you back and off you go.
Wow.
And it's just a kind of reversal of the roles.
And what a great location, because so many people just hang out there. All the universities are nearby. And it's a real collective of everyone, and people are having lunch, sitting on the lawn. And
Exactly. And I think for me too, you know, I'm always interested in what we talk about as cultural democracy.
Yep.
That idea that anyone can be part of art and culture in this
Yep,
city.
yep.
So that's what public art does for
Yeah,
me. It gives a
yeah.
chance for anyone to be part of this experience.
yeah, and how often is the kids in the choir there? You
They're
know,
there every day. So, you know, we'll be there for I think it's the first week of the festival, we'll be at the State Library, and then we head out to Footscray, and we can do it in Footscray Station.
Fantastic.
We wanted to kind of take it out of the city as well.
And talking about Footscray, you know, like there's a thriving art scene out there, isn't there?
There sure is, you know. Actually, we've got a big program out west. So, you know, at Footscray, but also the substation in Newport and heading out beyond there as well. I think we've got things in, you know, Werribee and all sorts of things. There's so many artists, of course, as they're increasingly priced out of the inner city.
Yep.
Artists, really interesting artists move to different places, and we're seeing, you know, that particularly the inner west really populated by interesting, great artists with big, bold ideas.
Yeah, but it's also a good point, as you said, being priced out of it. But all the councils and community organisations want it to happen in their suburbs, don't they?
Absolutely, totally. And you've got amazing venues there like Footscray Community Arts Centre and the Bluestone Church and the substation. You know, there's great work there. But also, you know, I'm thinking about the Rabble, for example, you know, incredible feminist, radical theatre-making group, you know. They're putting on a site-specific work in the Altona Italian Social Club. Like, it's genius, you know, that is entirely working with women over the age of 65 from the West. You know, so they're really kind of interested in engaging, you know, with community and making work, I guess, that speaks to those places. You know, not just kind of plonking things in. It's really engaged in those local communities.
You know, we'll talk about more of the events, but, you know, like putting on a Fringe festival is, you know, like pretty much every major city in the world now has a Fringe festival. And the Edinburgh one we all know as being, you know, like the one that everyone talks about and everyone wants to go to and lose money by going to it. And Adelaide Fringe. Why is it cities like that can put on a Fringe festival and for it to be a lot bigger than, say, one in Melbourne? I know you know that I know the answer, but tell our audience, why isn't it big here as what it is in Adelaide or Edinburgh?
I think, you know, well, I mean, Edinburgh is the, you know, oldest, you know, 70 years old, and I think Adelaide Fringe is not too far behind. And it's that thing of when you put a big festival in a small city, it just takes over a city in a different way, you know. Melbourne Fringe has such a different identity to it. And the thing I love about Melbourne is there's a festival for everything. You know, in Melbourne we've got the Comedy Festival, and it takes that kind of big commercial part out of the Fringe. That means the Fringe is able to do its job, which is about alternative culture and voices from the margins.
There are a lot of comedians, though, that are part of the Fringe, isn't there?
There sure are, but they're not the big ones that are on TV.
Right.
You know, they do the Comedy Festival and they do the Adelaide Fringe. And so I think in a place like Adelaide or Edinburgh, you know, they're these big, huge, you know, freewheeling nightmare, beautiful, you know, chaotic fairgrounds.
They are. They're crazy.
They're crazy.
And then Melbourne Fringe has got the swing.
That's it. And I guess, you know, we feel much more centred, I guess, in art making.
Yeah, but you know? I think that's genius that you're not doing the same old.
Totally. And I guess we try and take a step out of the kind of the commercial, you know, sell a gazillion tickets to something that you've seen on TV. And I guess we're much more interested in, you know, developing art and art forms and supporting local artists.
And the fact is that Melbourne people, we're known as the art city of Australia. And people come from all over the world to live in Melbourne because they believe what's going on here is to be important for the arts.
That's right. And I think there's something about, you know, obviously it's Melbourne artists going to all those other places. There's something about the structures in Melbourne that supports risk-taking and innovation and new ways of looking at the world. And I think that's because of Melbourne Fringe and other, the Mama and other organisations. They kind of support that free thinking, bold risk taking for local artists.
How many before performances? How many shows are there in the Fringe?
Oh gosh, this year I think it's about 471.
Whoa!
But number of performances, it's in the thousands.
Yeah.
That's how many shows there are, and then some shows do 20 or 30 performances. Yeah. So it's huge.
And also what I love is a lot of venues, because they're often just an hour long, and there's 3 different shows in one night.
At the Fringe Hub, which is at Trades Hall, which is run by the festival, we have, I think, 14 different rooms, and each room is turned over 4 times a night.
4 times a night?
So there's, 40-something, or about 50 shows a night that happens in that one building.
Yep.
And we have different programs each of the 3 weeks of the festival. So there's, 150 shows we put on in that one venue alone.
Wow. And the wonderful thing is the club's there as well.
The Fringe Club.
So therefore, you buy a ticket to go to a show, and then you automatically can get into the club.
Sure can, exactly.
And what's important about having a hub like you can go then to the club?
Yeah, well, I mean, firstly, it does allow you to see multiple shows a night, so you can, it makes it an experience and not just a night out. I really say to people, book a ticket to something that is going to be great. You've heard of the person, it's got a 5-star review. Go and book to see that at 7 o'clock, but then afterwards, just go and see something random. Go down to the box office, soak up the atmosphere, hear what someone's talking about in the bar, walk up to the box office and buy a ticket. There'll be something else on at 8:30. And then, you can get into the club for free at the end of the night for a kind of, wild night. And I think, because it's artists and audiences together, it's got this really welcoming, inclusive spirit.
Absolutely.
You can just come up and talk to someone and meet the artist of the show you just saw and meet someone else who's doing the show tomorrow.
Well, the wonderful thing is a lot of the artists say, I can't stop and talk now because I've got to go out and see the audience.
Totally. Absolutely. I've got to go and, bump out my show because it's 4 shows a night. They get 7.5 minutes to bump out a show.
Whoa.
And then the next performer gets 7.5 minutes to bump in. So there's 15 minutes between shows.
Yeah.
So, 7.5 minutes, they've got to, get their set out and get the next thing in, and then off they go.
So how hard is it, financially, running a festival? Because it's big, yes, a lot of the shows are putting on their own performances per se, but you're the umbrella that they're all under. Is it getting harder getting financial support?
Yeah, it definitely is. I think, there's never been a harder time to make art in Melbourne, or in Australia than it is right now. And I would say there's never been a harder time to make a festival. Dark Mofo's just cancelled their festival.
How sad is that?
And we're seeing it, music festivals. I understand it, because it's increasingly challenging. It's really obvious. The costs are going up wildly. We're all seeing it in the supermarket and the cost of living. That is multiplied 1 million times when you're running a festival. You've got to hire chairs and equipment and lights and sets. That all costs 40% more than it did 3 or 4 years ago. But there's no more government funding. That's not increasing. Philanthropy's got less money than ever before. Post-pandemic, there's been such a demand. And ticket buyers, because people, of course, are feeling the pinch at home, you can't raise the price of tickets either. So it's a really challenging time for all artists and festival directors right now.
But Simon, how do you react to it? As the overall festival. Is it? What are we going to do next year? Our budget won't be as good as what it was last year or this year. How do we get around it? Where do we get that money from?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I have lots of answers. Mostly good question. Who knows? What have you got? If there's anything back there, let me know.
5 cents.
I'll take it. I think one of the advantages of the Fringe, of course, is we're used to doing things on an oily rag. And so we continue that approach. The challenge of that means there's not many places to cut from. The budget is threadbare already. So we're really advocating to government You know, and I understand the government also has no money,
Yep.
but I truly believe that you put creativity at the heart of our economy, that is going to, you know, be a huge economic driver.
Yeah.
Last year's Fringe Festival had a $22 million economic benefit back to the state of
Whoa.
Victoria.
Whoa.
So if there's not a Fringe,
Yeah.
there are, and you know, like the festival's losing money, you know, it can't go on forever. If there's not a Fringe,
Yep.
you know, that's $22 million of economic benefit back to the state. That
Yeah.
won't happen. So we're advocating pretty strongly to say, imagine what an increased investment in the Fringe would deliver.
Yeah,
it would
good
be
on you.
more than a $22 million
Yeah.
financial benefit back to Victoria.
And the fact is that, as I said earlier, that Melbourne's known for the arts,
Yeah.
that if it didn't survive, it would be very embarrassing for the state of Victoria, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, there's not a headline. The Fringe is not going broke tomorrow. You know, like
No,
I haven't
no.
quite got the scoop. But you know, it's never been more challenging.
Yeah.
And you know, we're now in a situation of operating deficits. Now you can do that for a time because you've got reserves that you've built up over 40 years. But you can't do that forever,
No.
and at some point something's got to
Yeah.
shift. So it's incredibly challenging.
Well, that's why I'm bringing it up,
Yeah.
because it's easy just to flower over it.
Totally.
But it's important for our viewers to be aware
Yeah.
that it's tough to run a festival the size of a Fringe Festival.
It truly is, and you know, unless there is a shift, you know, something's got to change. For us, you know, we won't kind of try and make money out of the independent artists because they don't have any money.
No.
And that's our job, is to support them.
Yep.
So, you know, we continue to push philanthropy and government funding, you know,
Yeah.
really as strongly as we can.
Yeah.
And there does have to be a shift. There has to be an understanding in our culture of why art matters, and that if we as a culture, whether that's as a ticket buyer, as a philanthropist, or, you know, those in government, if there's not a shift to kind of increase support, we're going to see more and more cancelled things across
Yeah,
our city,
yeah.
and we're going to see Melbourne lose its status as, you know, as kind of arts capital, or
Yeah.
you know, Victoria is the creative state, and we
yeah.
want to keep it that way.
And I'm sure there's going to be somebody out there that thinks, I've got a few $100,000, I'm going to slip at the Fringe Festival
Give me
way.
a call, you know where to find me.
All right, so let's get back to the festival.
Yeah.
Is there a stage where, yes, a lot of people are coming to you with their shows and their performances, so therefore you've got that. But, you know, like with the ones like The Swing,
Yeah.
and a few other bits and pieces, you know, like, are you finding it hard to come up with ideas, or is it too many that you've actually got to go, oh, I wish we could afford to put that one on, but we can't?
Definitely the second. I never am short of ideas. I've got, you know, ideas for projects that'll take me 20 years to get through. The challenge is always just the resourcing to deliver them,
Yeah.
both money to commission them, but also it takes people to produce them, to make them,
Yep.
you know, to production manage them, to stage manage them, and
Yeah.
especially post-pandemic, there's just not the people also. We've had such a kind of raft of people leaving the sector.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. You know, and you know, over time, you know, of course, there was no live performance for 2 years,
Yep,
really.
yep.
And so for crew,
Yeah.
they've gone to find other jobs that's more secure employment.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're training up a whole new
Wow.
range of technicians, but, you know, that person behind the lighting desk or the sound desk may never have done that before, and it's really, you know, Melbourne Fringe and some of our colleagues that are training them up.
But isn't that good? You know, like new blood into the system.
There's pros and cons. One of the great things is there's new blood. It was a very kind of male-dominated industry, the kind of technical crew.
Yeah.
You know, there's a great opportunity for us to train up more women and you know, different cultural, you know, backgrounds, and really kind of look to diversify those crews. But, you know, we also need experience and people that know what they're doing, and it's going to take time to train up a new generation. So there's pros and cons, but we're definitely always here for the long-term vision.
And you know, like, you would work on a skeleton staff, I could imagine, but then around festival time, that's the lead up, and volunteers.
So our staff just, you know, balloons to about 100 50 from,
What?
Yeah.
Whoa.
So by the time you include technicians, front of house staff, bar staff, it suddenly does this.
Oh, so you control the bar.
We control the bar at Trades
Club.
Hall, yep.
Right.
So they can't do that, and then they all disappear. So they just work with us for 3 weeks of the festival. And then we have 200 volunteers who are with us again across the whole city, in art and public space, and we've got a booth in Fed Square and public installations at the Queen Victoria Market and the State Library and in Footscray, and wherever we are, there's volunteers there that just make it happen. We literally couldn't do it without them.
Yeah, well, exactly. But isn't that lovely? And having those volunteers, and are they come back, or do they fall away during COVID?
They definitely come back year after year, but of course we didn't, because we were online only for 2 years, so we didn't have any volunteers for 2 years.
Yeah.
But they came back, last year.
And it would be a whole new generation of people on, like, as you said, with the technicians as well.
Yeah, we've got 2 groups. We've got like our stalwarts who have volunteered for Fringe forever, longer than I have. Some of them come in and they just know this place inside and out. They know exactly what they're doing and they're amazing. And then we have a lot of international students actually who want to increase their language skills or their social connections, learn about the city. They come and volunteer with us. All sorts of people choose to volunteer.
Well, the wonderful thing about it is if you're at one of the venues that you can probably stand in and watch a show, or even sit down at the back, sit down at the back and take a show in.
Exactly.
A great chance to see and feel the vibe of a festival, isn't it?
Exactly, and to just understand, what goes into making it. You sort of get to be behind the scenes and meet everyone, and you get an all-important pass that gets you into things for free. So it's a good combination.
Yeah, and the friends that they would make along the way as well.
It.
So give us an idea of like what you have commissioned in this, apart from the swing.
Yeah. Oh, so in this year's festival, lots of things. I'm really excited about a program we've got. It's called Pulse. And I don't know if you remember, the MTC had a program called Neon back in the day. The Malthouse had a program called Helium. The Art Centre had a program called Full Tilt. The kind of main stages had these programs that showcased really ambitious art making from independent artists. And over time, all of those programs disappeared. And I felt that for independent artists, they didn't have anywhere to go. So they don't need to graduate from the Fringe. We've kind of created a commissioning program within the Fringe called Pulse that is about bold, ambitious artists really pushing the boundaries of art form and really experienced artists. So that's, we've got the Rabble, got Joel Bray making a beautiful work.
Now tell people who Joel Bray is.
So Joel, if people don't know, they should.
They should.
Joel is an incredible First Nations artist. He's a Wiradjuri man. And he did his first ever show with Melbourne Fringe as part of our Deadly Fringe program. I'm going to say 2017.
Right.
Called Biladurang.
And he's contemporary dance
Contemporary
artist.
dance, yeah.
But blurs the lines a lot.
Yeah, participatory theatre, dance, really interesting artist. And he made his first work with Fringe. And then he's, of course, gone on to do, all sorts of other things on the major festivals. And he's got a big shot in the Malthouse next year. And he's got a new work happening for Melbourne Fringe this year, which is a party. I basically said to him, can you throw a wild arty party?
Awesome.
And so he's taken over the substation, the whole building, and there'll be DJs and performances and visual arts and weird things that happen and participatory moments, and it'll be pretty fun.
Yeah.
So he's doing that. We've got amazing artist Jonathan Homsey is doing a work at the Melbourne City Bards where audience members can get in the water and perform as part of the show.
So they're doing a water ballet,
They're singing, actually, in the water.
Right.
The Bloom Shed, who did Animal Farm last year, they've got a new work called A Dodgeball Named Desire that's happening at 45 downstairs.
I love it.
So I guess I really was interested in commissioning work that spoke to what's happening in the city right now, that's in interesting sites, that kind of reflects the community's concerns, and that kind of said something about form. I really wanted to kind of, push the boundaries of form.
Yeah. And what about on the design front? Like the furniture, Fringe furniture was really big. Yeah. Is that still around?
It's still going. In fact, it opened just the other day. So it's now called Design Fringe.
Right.
And we basically expanded it. It used to be, as you well know, It used to be a furniture exhibition.
Yeah.
It's called Fringe Furniture.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of chairs.
And it was always out at the convent, wasn't it?
It's been at the convent for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been going for 35 years,
Yeah.
so it's been in all sorts of places over 35 years.
Right.
But it was at Abbotsford Convent for many years.
Yeah.
And now it's just down the road
I
here
know.
at Linden Gallery.
I know.
And it's now called Design Fringe. And we opened that up, so it is furniture, but it's also fashion and sculpture and architecture. You know, there's models in there. It's really, you know, kind of broadening it out to a much larger design kind of.
And how good is that for designers though? Because, you know, like in a lot of cases, where do they exhibit apart from, you know, like within their university or whatever? It's really important for a lot of designers to have that outlet. Young, you know, like, and, you know, fringe designers.
Exactly.
You know, like, and Linden is got such a wonderful reputation.
Totally. It's a beautiful site. It's a really well curated exhibition.
Yep.
And for an artist, you can just submit one piece. So it's a group exhibition. You don't have to kind of submit a whole exhibition's worth of work. You can just put in a single piece, and as an audience member, an attendee, of course, you get the variety of all these different things there. And again, there we've been really interested in kind of gender equity, because the design industry is really male heavy. We really wanted to look at that, and we've put in a number of bursaries and mentorships and support. And now we've seen the participation grow now to be equal men and women participating.
And Vincent, who runs Linden, I forgot the name there for a moment. He's such a smart man, such a clever man, and you know that it's going to be good if it's in his hands.
Absolutely,
don't you?
It's a really great partnership.
Yeah. So, in a few weeks' time, it will be all over. What does Simon Abrahams do at the end? Do you fall into a heap, or do you have to sort of write reports and come back, or do you take a break?
Look, a bit of all of the above. I know people don't understand what it is to run a festival. You literally are on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You know, you might get 4 or 5 hours sleep a night, but even then your phone's pinging at you, and when you wake up, there's a million crises to resolve. So, you know, you are, by the end of it, you are exhausted.
But the other thing is that starting in a week's time, and you're actually going to see somebody now after this interview for next year.
Oh yeah, next year's well and truly underway, and you know, mostly, you know, half programmed. All our big commissions are sort of done. So, you know, that's it. We finished the festival. Yes, we've got to write 1 million reports. Yes, I've got to sleep for a little bit, take a few days off. And then we just jump into 2024, get that going. And truthfully, starting work on 2025, you know, people don't understand. I think because we don't have any money. So it's not like I have a giant, you know, pool of money that we can pay for things for. So to do anything, I've got to know exactly what I want to do, and then find people to pay for it. Pitch them the idea, you know, get them over the line, get all that process finished sort of by the end of this year, so that then you've got 9 months next year to roll it out, you know, because it takes at least that.
So on an average day during the festival, you're working during the day. Do you go out every night? Checking out what's going on?
Oh yeah, I'll see 4 to 5 shows a day. You know, I mean, on a weekend I might start at 10 a.m. and finish at, you know, 3 a.m. and you just sort of are seeing shows all day. So, you know, I try and see as many shows as I can. I mean, there's 471 shows.
See them all.
The most I've ever done in a festival was about 65.
Right.
But, you know, it's not humanly possible to see many more than that, because of course I've got to meet funders and donors and sponsors and politicians, and that takes up some of my time. But I find it hard because I've been working all year, and of course working with these artists, and sometimes I literally physically can't get to the show. If everyone's show's on at 7:30, you know, there's 5 days, you know, of 7:30 shows and 20 shows. You've got to pick 5.
And there must be times when all of a sudden you don't know, you know, like as we were talking earlier, you go to a show you don't know, and you pop in to see a performance and you go, oh my goodness, I didn't realise that it was going to be this good.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, sometimes the other way too. But absolutely, it's constantly full of surprises. And that's what keeps me sort of active and engaged and excited after all this time. Because it's never the same.
10 years next year.
10 years next year, 10 festivals, yeah.
Well, congratulations on what
you.
you've done. And you won't sleep for the next 3 or 4 weeks. So if I bump into you somewhere out and about and you walk past me and I go, Simon, you'll probably go, who are you? Who are you?
Look, yeah, it feels like a completely different organisation to the one that was there when I started.
Oh, of course it would be.
It's grown. I think our turnover was about 1.5 million, and now last year we were at 8.9 million.
Wow.
So just the scale of the festival, the ambition, what it is that we're doing is so different. It's a completely different job in so many ways to the one I was doing nearly a decade ago. And I don't know how long I'll be here, but I'm having a great time. So I'm, not planning on going anywhere.
Yeah.
I think as long as I'm still having fun, still feeling energised, still full of ideas, I'll stay unless I'm fired, cancelled. I'll keep going as long as I've got something to say.
Yep.
And right now, as I say, more ideas than there is, time to make them happen.
Well, congratulations on what you're doing. You're doing a wonderful job, and everyone out there knows it. So congratulations.
Thank you, David. Thanks always for your support.
My pleasure. You've been watching The Art Hunter. I'm David Hunt, and we'll be back again next year. Episode 100 is just around the...
100 shows. That is incredible.
Congratulations. I know, we never thought in a million years that we'd get to 100.
Amazing.
Yeah. So thank you. See you, folks.